I was pleased to note that that wasn't a death knell. It was could have been a little bit of a lively gong there. Thank you, Charlie. It's really pleased to be here. This is a weekend for me that's a little bit of a bittersweet time. This is my home territory. My Masonic work began here in the Toledo area, small lodge near here in the 11th district, which is what we are here. And it's always good to get back, and I haven't really been around a lot in recent years. About 12 years ago, I moved out of the Toledo area down to Columbus area, where I was Grand Secretary. And so coming back, being at Barton Smith, seeing some of the brethren I hadn't seen for 20, 30 years, this morning, seeing some of the ones that I will around the hotel, it's just a bittersweet time for me, and I'm really enjoying this opportunity. It's also, as far as the Midwest Conference goes, I have been at the three most recent, this is the third conference in Toledo over the years, and I know I attended one or two others that were held elsewhere, but it is good to be back with all of you here. Last September, I moved out of Ohio to Silver Spring, Maryland, in the nation's capital area. Actually, our office is within the Beltway. I live just outside, but we're in that, and what a difference to move from the Midwest to the center of our government area there. My remarks today are not really going to be an education paper, but more to lead into your conference, and also as a part of that to take a look at what the Masonic Service Association is doing in education. I might also say that a member of one of our subgroups of the Masonic Service Association, the steering committee of the Masonic Information Center, and a member of that is Terry Tilton, and we've been working with him over the years on that. Thank you for all the help you're giving us on that, Terry. And it's also good to be able to accept the invitation of a longtime friend of mine, Charlie Murphy. Here in Ohio, we have, when you appoint somebody into line, you become his fraternal father. Well, Charlie's my fraternal great-grandson. Now, I'm not quite as old as that would seem, and he's not quite as young as that would seem either. But we have been close for many years, and it's really great to accept your invitation, and thank you for that. Charlie, as many of the Ohioans know, has been very active in his church. And together with his appeal for education, as you all know from his work with the education, or the conference here, he and his church, he wanted to prove this in his church one day, and one day he walked in, and he walked up to a little 7-year-old boy, and he said, "Billy, who tore down the walls of Jericho?" And little Billy looked up at him and said, I don't know who did that, but it wasn't me. Now Charlie's thinking, what kind of education are they developing here in this Sunday school? So he went to Billy's teacher. He says, "Miss Johnson, I just approached Billy, and I said to him, 'Who tore down the walls of Jericho?' And Billy said, 'I don't know, but it wasn't me. What's the matter with that?' And Miss Johnson said, 'Well, now look, I know Billy very well. And if he told you he didn't do it, I believe him.'" This still didn't it did not satisfy Charlie. And so he went on to the church, the Sunday school superintendent. And he told the story again. "I went to Billy. I said, 'Who tore down the walls of Jericho?' I went to Miss Johnson, and she said, 'Well, you got to believe him if he said he didn't do it.' And, what gives here?" And the superintendent said, "Now, don't get excited, Charlie. Just find out how much it cost, and we'll repair it and send the bill to the insurance company." Now, of course, that didn't help Charlie either, because he sold him the insurance policy. But it is good to be with you today. I have always been drawn to Masonic poetry. For sometimes a message that's put in rhyme can be more emphatic and get the message through better than some others. And over the years, one of my favorite Masonic poets was a man named Walter K. Belt, B-E-L-T, from Newport, Oregon. And I've always liked these particular lines from him. And it actually says something to education. It's really a message that there is something more out there than ritual, but I think it also has a message for education. Some of the language the Masons use is highfalutin and queer. Some of the words may our minds confuse. They come from another year. Yet, though the words may be strange and old, they are with such wisdom filled, that we all can learn from the lore they hold of the dreams that have led our guild. And it may be that you will have trouble too, and believe you are not quite right when you try to deliver the message true to the eager young neophyte. But remember this, when your tale is heard, he will gladly heed your theme. It's not the way we pronounce the word, but the way that we live the dream. The simple words of this poem, I believe, are a message to all that all Masons need to hear. For indeed, it's not the way we pronounce the word, but the way that we live the dream. For you see, Masonry has a dream. It's a dream in which I'm sure is shared by all of our members and by all of their families, if not by all Americans. It is a dream that we may someday live in communities, in a society that is better than the one we have today. It is a dream that improvement, that progress is always possible, and it's something that we should seek. Well, such a dream has had a long tradition in Freemasonry. Our ancient brethren were builders, always striving to construct a greater, more beautiful cathedral. The goal of every Masonic lodge is to take good men and to make them better, and thereby, bit by bit, man by man, our societies and communities will be continually improved. Masonry has a dream that we can live in a society ruled by brotherly love, relief, and truth, a brotherhood of all mankind under the fatherhood of God. It is a dream that all citizens will be unified in their support of their country as it meets the challenges of the world. And it is a dream for a place where individual honesty and integrity shine in public as well as private dealings. A place where charity is generous to all in need. This is Freemasonry's dream. Now, to many, this dream is a mere fantasy, an unrealistic yearning for the unattainable. But my brethren, dreams sometimes come true. Dreams can be made to come true. And I sincerely believe that Freemasonry's dream is no mere fantasy. It is achievable, and it can be turned into reality if we are willing to work for it. It's not the way you pronounce the word, but the way that you live the dream. In a way, one could say that I am living a dream right now. In my new role as Executive Secretary of the Masonic Service Association, I have a wonderful job working for Freemasonry. I have the opportunity to see and sometimes be part of what is great about our fraternity, our charity, and our fellowship. I meet hundreds of the finest people across this glorious continent. Now, I never really had any ambition to be in this position. For me, that would have been just a fantasy, a dream. But when all of a sudden the opportunity was presented, I came out of retirement to accept this challenge. And so you could say that I am living the dream. As I travel around attending Grand Lodges, talking and listening to many Masons, I realize that they are seeking dreams too. If I could classify these dreams that I hear about into two areas, I would say that one, they are dreaming for more Masonic knowledge and understanding for their members and candidates. And two, they are looking for more outreach and positive visibility in their communities. In other words, more education, internally and externally. They are honestly trying to improve themselves in Masonry and continue the improvement of their brethren and communities through education. A psychologist, Dr. William Maston, conducted a survey of about 3,000 persons, which asked the question, what are you doing with your life? And about 90% of them replied, in effect, that they were waiting. Waiting for a particular event to occur, waiting for their children to grow up, waiting for retirement. The conclusion that could be drawn from this research is that most people do not realize their dreams because they never get past the stage of dreaming. They do not try to live their dreams. Walt Disney is quoted as saying, "If you can dream it, do it." And he surely did that with his career. The Masonic Service Association, through its Masonic Information Center, 6 years ago launched the Mark Twain Award program, in which we recognize those lodges across the country who have demonstrated an outstanding performance in Masonry. These lodges must have good communication and education programs as part of this, as part of their entry. And they must have these educations both with their members as well as Masonic awareness in their communities. The total winners over those 6 years of the Mark Twain Award program has been just 107 lodges have been honored. We announced at the Conference of Grand Masters a couple months ago the 2011 winners, and there were just 18. There's only a handful of winners compared to the more than 10,000 lodges across this country. But these Mark Twain recipients are indeed living their dreams. They have observed needs, planned activities, and indeed dreamed about the success they wanted. And then they have gone to work and lived those dreams. In fact, most winners have proven their excellence through successful programs in member education and community service. Masonic Service Association, the organization I represent, has dreams too. We hear the call from Masons across the country to provide more and better education for new as well as our seasoned Masonic members. Now, I'm not sure I can say that those dreams are being fulfilled, but we are working on them. Our short talk bulletins today reach 20,000 individuals every month. The MSA has been publishing these monthly bulletins since 1923, and we have well over 1,000 of them in our catalog. We plan in the months ahead to make them more easily available to obtain. We're hoping to offer credit card opportunities on our website, and we're looking down the road at other means of electronic distribution. We aren't there yet, but we are looking at those needs, and we're hoping that maybe we can, one of these days, not too far off, live through a few of those dreams. We'd like to ask you to encourage your members to go to our website and to check out the Short Talk Bulletin and other educational publications that are available. Also, MSA, as was mentioned earlier by Craig, is on Facebook. And if you want to go to our Facebook site, sign up to be a friend, and we'll send along some information to you periodically. Another great service performed by the MSA is our hospital visitation program. Our network of certified hospital volunteers visit virtually every Veterans Administration hospital in our country. MSA is just one of 55 organizations certified by the VA to do this. With some 500 to 1,000 volunteers annually, providing 200,000 hours of volunteer service to VA, we are thus donating an estimated $4.1 million in voluntary service to the VA. We dream of more volunteers to help the cause. We look for more young Masons to contribute their time so we can replace some of the aged veterans and volunteers who just won't stop. And I know that within lodges throughout your jurisdictions, there are brethren longing to reach out and help our military veterans. As Jerry said, this is a very important service that we can perform now, and many of our brethren would love to do this. And we would hope that they could somehow join our cause and be a hospital visitor and help to say thank you to those individuals who have protected our freedoms. In the hours ahead today, during these meetings, the Midwest Conference on Masonic Education, we'll be looking at needs, at ideas, at opportunities, and at goals for advancing an education agenda. Some of these objectives or ideas may seem like fantasies, with the chance of complete acceptance and implementation back in your Grand Lodge being merely a dream. But as I said earlier, sometimes dreams can come true. It's not the way you pronounce the word, but the way that you live the dream. Just the concept of spreading Masonic education to more members and non-members is often a dream in some lodges and in some Grand Lodges. Grand Lodge officers sometimes put up roadblocks to new education programs. At the lodge level, old-timers don't want to venture into any new directions with regard to education. Our ideas may be great when we meet here together and talk about them. But sometimes they are difficult to put into effect when we get back home and into the reality of implementation. That's when our dreams sometimes seem to disappear. Famous German writer and scientist of the 19th century, Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, is it Goethe? Goethe. See? I had to call some of my German friends here. He said, "What you can dream, you can do. But you must begin. For in beginning there is boldness, genius, power, and magic." In other words, don't just dream. Begin and start to live your life. If we really want our lodges to succeed, we will devote whatever time and energy is necessary to accomplish that purpose. If we really stand for high moral values, we must live in our public and private lives with honesty and integrity. If we really claim to be patriotic citizens, we must put aside petty grudges and work to build a strong and unified country. If we really believe in God, we will act like children of God. Brethren, we have a dream as Masons, a dream of better individuals in a better society. We have a dream as members of the Midwest Conference on Masonic Education, a dream that all of our new candidates, our lodge officers, and our brethren, and in fact, our communities as well, all could be more knowledgeable in everything about Freemasonry. There are stumbling blocks we will encounter. There are hurdles we must overcome. There are challenges that we must face. But if we sincerely want to perpetuate these noble dreams, Masons must put new energy into them. We must devote extra effort to making these dreams into reality. We must meet, act, and part to fulfill the dreams. We must go into the world and into our lodges and Grand Lodges as Masons with a purpose, always living our dream. And remember this, when your tale is heard, men will gladly heed your theme. It's not the way you pronounce the word, but the way that you live the dream. May all your dreams for Masonic education be fulfilled as you work to help Freemasonry live the dream. So mote it be. I don't know about you. If anyone would have any questions about MSA, not necessarily related or related, I'd be glad to let it know. Are there anything about MSA? Any comments? Any questions? Mike.
George, they have the Short Talk Bulletin. It comes out monthly, but they periodically come out with new publications, you know, Masonic watches and curios and all that. And at one time, I asked to be put on a list. When they put out a new publication, just send it to me and bill me. They were doing that for a while, but they since have stopped. Is there a policy on that?
No, there's no policy. It becomes just a little difficult to do that for a small handful of persons. We try to publicize when we have something new, to publicize it out in the mass area. But it is difficult and to do kind of an individual thing. As I say, we monthly send out 20,000 short talk bulletins. In addition, we have another monthly publication called the MSA Notes, which goes to about 4,000 people. Quarterly, we have a focus publication, which is mailed with the with the short talk bulletin that goes out to the same 20,000 people. And this is actually a publication from the Masonic Information Center. So there's a lot of these, and that is one of, I guess, one of the most difficult, but one of the most enjoyable parts of my job is to gather this information and to get it published. My background is journalism, and I really enjoy this part of the work. Our audience has got to be different than, for example, Shawn and the Philalethes. He's looking at a very, perhaps a more Masonically intellectual group. We're looking at a very broad-based group, from the youngest person coming in to the oldest past master to the average brother. We have to look for a very common denominator in our work. But, that's one of my most enjoyable jobs is working on that. Anyone else?
George, you might inform them a little bit about the Masonic Information Center. I think some perhaps do not remember why it was formed, nor what purpose it serves today in relationship to everything that's part of MSA's
Masonic Service Association was formed in the early 90s, 92, 93, something in that area. And it was actually an Ohioan who was really one of the impetus for this, John Robinson, the author who wrote Pilgrim's Path and what are some, Born in Blood, several of the other books. He wasn't a Mason at the time he wrote those, but later became a Mason. He was originally from the Cincinnati area. And he actually wanted an organization that would respond to the public's questions about those bad things we do in Masonry, how we teach Satanism and burn this kind of animal, and all these crazy questions. And actually, the proceeds, a part of the proceeds that he received from the Pilgrim's Path, went to help initially get this funded, and he wanted it attached to the Masonic Service Association. And that's why it was. And Terry and myself and quite a few others back in the 1992, 93 era became part of the steering committee, and I've worked with the MSA for many years in that regard. One of the biggest first thrusts that really got us going was in that time when the Southern Baptist Church had made the decision, or was trying to make the decision, that no Masons could become a member or could be a member of the Southern Baptist Church. Those were incompatible memberships. And a young man at that time who was a Baptist pastor and was working for one of their national organizations was asked to study this. And he did a lot of work on it. He looked at the research on all areas of it, and he reported back to the Southern Baptist Church that there was nothing wrong with Freemasonry. He got pushed out and eventually fired from his job, and he became one of our members of the steering committee. His name is Gary Leeser from Georgia. He has spoken all over the country. He is an expert on that. He is now an officer in the Grand Lodge of Georgia, and in, I don't know, 4 or 5 years will be Grand Master of Georgia. But that's how he came into Masonry, by studying it. But that was one of the issues. We had a group that went down to Houston, was it Houston or Dallas? I think it was Houston. At the convention, we had a full-page ad in the paper, and the delegates to that Southern Baptist Convention decided that Masonry was okay and their members could continue on, and we had passed that. But ever since then, he continues to, the Masonic Information Center continues to answer those questions. We have, in the past few months, I've had questions from, well, was it Kansas? There was an issue with religion. Was it your Grand Chaplain?
You want to talk about that?
Well, I don't know if we need to get in, but go ahead.
Our Grand Chaplain was an ordained minister in not the Missouri Synod, but one of the minor Lutheran sects. And the position was that no ordained minister could be a Mason, so he had to resign as Grand Chaplain and demand. So.
Yes. And this is, again, and I'm kind of touched by that because I am a Lutheran, and I understand that there's different synods, and where I am in the ELCA, Evangelical Lutheran Church of America, they allow Masons as members, but you can't be clergy. Missouri Synod, Wisconsin Synod. But these are some of the questions that the MIC receives. Yes, Chad?
And George, just to make sure I understand, I mean, the role of the MIC is not to actively participate in controversy.
Right.
It's to provide a solid, factual response to accusations or questions. So whether the Lutherans hate Masons or love them is not an issue of the MIC.
That's right.
It's just if someone wants to say, what is the stand of Freemasonry on something, that we give them a factual response.
Early on, the Masonic Information System wrote a number of policy positions on a lot of issues. Those are on our webpage. And there it is. I had looked up that. He does good work. But we have a number of policy positions on religion. We've produced a number of booklets and pamphlets. And when a situation is brought to us, we have information that we can provide to help take care of that situation. Those were a couple of the big ones. We in many respects, the MSA has become the spokesperson for the Masonic fraternity. I was interviewed by a Time magazine reporter a couple of weeks ago. They come to us as the place to act, and the Masonic Information Center is preparing that. Whenever we get any kind of questions, we have a group of people from all over the country that we can call on and say, how should we react to this? And the steering committee helps us with that. Anything a little more you want to add on that, Terry?
I think that's correct, George, in all aspects. I think what a lot of people do not understand is that the North American Conference of Grand Masters, of course, is the Masonic Service Association has been around since the early 1920s and was formed out of that sense that we needed to have some response initially to veterans and how do we respond Masonically, but we have no national organization. And so consequently, the MSA fields so many issues that come to us from the media simply asking what is the position of Masonry, because we have 51 different jurisdictions. And so consequently, we do have at least a clearinghouse. We report directly to them each year. We are self-supporting. We receive, outside of the generosity of our Grand Lodges and generosity of brothers and the publication of materials that we have a little bit of income from, there's nothing else to support us.
That's right.
And so we're very dependent upon the goodwill of the Grand Lodges and the Freemasons of North America to have a place where we can have some clarification of some of these issues and try to reach consensus.
And it's interesting, in the 90s when the Conference of Grand Masters gave us the thrust to get this Masonic Information Center started for that, it kind of, I reflect back to 1919, actually a little earlier, maybe 1918, when the whole MSA was created. It was a different issue, but the same need. At the close, nearing the close of World War I, all the Grand Lodges wanted to do something for the veterans. Visit them, welcome them, do something, and they wanted to be certified to do this by the Veterans Administration. The Knights of Columbus had this. The Jewish war veterans had this. American Legion, VF, many of these other groups had this authority. And the Grand Lodges were trying to get this same certification from the VA. VA said, no, we can't work with 49 organizations. And at that time, before Alaska and Hawaii, there were 49 Grand Lodges in continental United States. And they said, we can't work with 49. And that's when the whole concept of the MSA came together to be that organization which worked between Masonry and the Grand Lodges and the VA. And that's our hospital visitation program that we mentioned sprung out of that. And there's just 55 organizations now, and we're, as I look at some reports on volunteer hours and so on, we're not the biggest, but we're in the top 10 of some of those organizations, some of those which are veteran and military organizations by themselves, the American Legion, the VFW, and some of these who are made up of veterans. Yes, they do some more hours and they do some more than we do, but that's their whole purpose of those organizations. We do very well.